In this video, we're going to look at part 2 of the Korg LittleBits synth kit. And we'll have a look at some of the projects. So what you'll learn, we'll look at tuning, and it's important to do this, particularly if you're in a team and you want to make sure that you're tuned properly with the other members of your band, orchestra, or team. We're going to play your first song, and we'll use more advanced modules, particularly the filter and the delay. And our first project will be to create spooky sounds. We'll then move on and use the envelope module for percussion projects, and we'll create some metal sounds. And finally, we'll have a look at the synth band using multiple sounds and parallel arms to our circuits. And the advanced projects, I'll leave these on your to your own devices, and you can come back later and have a look at projects 8, 9, and 10. So here are some of the projects. We'll look at tuning, we'll play a song, some spooky sounds, the percussion party, the metal music, the synth band, the synthesizer with the works. Now, all of these are taken from the booklet that comes with the kit. Okay, so tuning, we're going to make sure that we're on the right frequency, and that you might use a tuning fork if you have a piano. And today we're going to use a Korg Tuner, which is an electronic device that can tell us what the note is. It does this visually on a LCD screen. So the circuit that we're going to use, we've used it in part 1 with our power module, keyboard, oscillator, and speaker. And we're going to play this song. So once we've tuned it, we'll have a go at a few songs. So I've got a couple here for you, or you can use Stevie Wonder's Living for the City instead. Just note that the color-coded that I've got here doesn't correspond to boom whackers, and I'm going to use boom whackers, and you can select any of the following tunes that you like. So the boom whackers, I'm using the musical notation here. You can see the color coding goes from, well, we start off with C, which is just below D, and we're going to go up only 1 octave on our Korg LittleBits kit. So this is what we did previously. We used boom whackers with C right through to B, and these were all color-coded, both on the keyboard and the instruments that we used before. And here's Are You Sleeping? So instead of the octave, we're going to transcribe that down, so it's a bit easier to play the range on our Korg LittleBits keyboard. And here it is. There's the keyboard with the color coding from the boom whackers color code, and Are You Sleeping? So you might like to have a go at playing that. Alternatively, here's a few more tunes, all from Helen Winter's book, which I encourage you to get. We're going to leave out the accurate timing here, so we're just simplifying it so that you just play the right notes. And Amazing Grace as an alternative. Is It Rainy? Rain, rain, go away. Row, row, row your boat. London Bridge is falling down. Itsy Bitsy Spider. And Kookaburra. So there's a selection of tunes that you might like to test out your circuit. Now we're going to play the song. So let's have a look at some spooky sounds. And these were used on the movie the Forbidden Planet back in 1956. We might actually go and listen to some of those sounds now. So we'll just click on here and you'll hear what the sound like. Okay, so that was some of the sounds from the Forbidden Planet. And here's the circuit. So we've got power on the left, as we always do. We're using the white noise generator or the random module, the filter module, the delay, and the speaker. And the sounds that you can create will be very similar to what you heard on the Forbidden Planet. Next project is the percussion party. And here we're going to look at creating different sounds. So if you turn the knobs all the way down on the sequencer, so we start off with a sequencer, and we have a feedback that goes into the envelope. And you can create sounds like a wood block or a water drop. And this is used to create some interesting sound effects. And here's the circuit. So we've got the power followed by the micro sequencer. Then we use the splitter for the first time. And one arm of that goes into the envelope. The other arm continues on with the random, and we filter that out. And we also send that to the envelope. So the envelope's got two inputs. And finally, we have the speaker. And now for some metal music. So the metal music, we've got two oscillators, similar to what we did before with the FM. But this time we're also going to use an envelope before we go into the speaker. And quite interesting, you'll be able to create all sorts of metallic types of sounds, like a bell, by changing some of the parameters here. And there's the circuit. And we're just moving on now to more complex circuits. So once you've mastered those simpler circuits, we're going to have now two arms on our circuits, which is created with a splitter. So the splitter module is a wire module, so it is orange. The ends are orange, and one feeds off to the micro sequencer, oscillator, and filter before it goes into a mixer, and the other one goes into the keyboard, oscillator, envelope, delay, and it's the second channel on our mixer. Then finally we can hear it on our speaker. Now you would use the micro sequencer as a backing track, and you can play the tune on your keyboard. And here's the circuit for that. And continuing with more complex circuits, this time we've got two oscillators in parallel before they're mixed again, and we use the envelope, filter, and delay. So you might like to put this together. I would suggest putting this on a bass board to make sure that all the contacts are working correctly. If you're having problems, use the voltmeter or the display module to try and track down which module is not connecting properly. So here's the circuit. And here's a couple that you might like to try yourself. This one uses the box of the kit, and it's making a synthesizer similar to the Korg MS-20. And the last circuit is the guitar. And you can put this onto a cardboard guitar base, and it's going to use a keyboard, oscillator, and another oscillator that feeds into the filter. So the filter's got two inputs, one from the oscillator and the other one from a envelope, then to a delay before we go into the speaker. And you'll be able to create some interesting tunes from this. Okay, so that's it. If you want to actually go a bit further and put it onto a cardboard and tape it down, this is what this project will look like. And finally, we have one more, which is Project 10, and this is the last one. It's the Synth spinning table. Here are all the components. This time we're using the micro sequencer with 2 oscillators before it goes into the mixer, the envelope, and the speaker. And it sounds a little bit like what Donna Summer was doing in 1977 with the tune I Feel Love. And putting it all together, a little bit of work with some extra materials, paper, cardboard, and putting that together should look like the arrangement on step 9. Then you'll be able to get to step 12 and start spinning your table. And here are the references. And that's all for the Korg LittleBits series on electronic music. Let's play a song. The first thing we're going to do, though, is tune it. So we'll play middle C on our keyboard, our Korg LittleBit keyboard. And you can see we're pretty close to C. It's actually a C+. We want to go down a little bit. E. E. B. E. F. Go up in frequency. Now we've got a C. We're ready to play a song. And the song we're going to play is Are You Sleeping? So we've just played a song on the Korg LittleBits keyboard. Here we have metal music and LittleBits Korg. The modules are strung together in sequence, and we're starting off with power. Power then followed by the micro sequencer. There are 4 knobs to adjust the sequence, and that feeds in by a wire to 2 oscillators, the oscillator number 1, oscillator 2, and just before we go to the speaker, which is connected by a wire, we have a envelope, so we can adjust the attack and decay using the envelope knobs. So if we want to hear what it sounds like, we just turn it up. And we can adjust, get it to sound more like metal, more like a bell when we adjust the second oscillator. And that's our Korg LittleBits metal music. Here we have the synth band, and we're putting the Korg LittleBits modules together, and we've got power being fed off to parallel arms. The lower one we've got a keyboard, and the upper one we've got a sequencer. Both have oscillators, and we need to tune those in a minute. The keyboard circuit has following the oscillator, we've got the envelope and the delay, and there's a filter following the oscillator on the sequencer arm. Now they're mixed together. The mixer is over here, and that feeds into a speaker. So we might hear it, but before we hear it, the first thing we've got to do is tune it. So what we do is listen to the oscillators. We'll turn up the oscillator, turn down, so we're listening to the sequencer now. And you can see that we're getting on the feedback from our tuner is that it's actually varying. So we'll turn that one down and listen to the keyboard. So we'll go to the first key. Okay, so we're happy with the tuning of the two oscillators, and now we'll just listen to see what it sounds like. We don't want, so number one input to the mixer is from the sequencer, and number two is coming from the keyboard. So we'll turn the sequencer down and the keyboard up. And now we can play a melody. And that's the synth band. And now we have synthesizer, the works. And it starts off with a power on the left, followed by the keyboard. We've got two oscillators, and this time they're in parallel, and they're coming together with a mixer. So we've got mixer 1, mixer 2, and the output of that goes into the next arm, which has a envelope where we can control the attack and delay or decay. And after that, we've got the filter followed by a delay. And the final one is our speaker, so we can hear everything. So if we want to see how it sounds, we can just go on the keyboard. And if we want to add a little bit more feedback to that, turn down the volume. Too much feedback. And that's our synthesizer with the works.